Look up the word crazy in the dictionary and you might just find an asterisk beside the definition that says, listen to the Subiquitous podcast featuring Sue Duffield and you'll find out what crazy means. Sue's travelogue journey of unfiltered stories, impossible miracles, and faith-filled fun will be revisited right here. So buckle up and let's get going with this humorous travelogue of an unfiltered saint, Subiquitous.
You know, quirky people are described as being unusual in a likable and endearing way. I've been told my whole life, Sue, you're quirky. You have some interesting ways about you, and I like that, Jeff. I don't know why. I just have always loved being quirky.
Are you insinuating that you married into quirky?
Well, I'm thinking, this is what I'm really thinking. You're attracted to quirky. This is what really frightens me a little bit.
For both of us.
I know. And I think maybe it started with your childhood. I don't know. What was in your childhood that you were attracted to a weird person? I don't know.
Well, I met you when I was 12.
I know.
I seem to think I recall that my first 12 years of my life were rather normal.
Right.
I didn't really have any...
Well, let me just say
out
this.
there, people.
Let me say this about that.
Okay.
I would not say that Jeff Duffield was normal. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying you were not the normal teenager in my realm.
No,
I didn't have anybody on my street growing up in Pennsgrove that went to a designer Jewish store to buy clothing. I mean,
a designer Jewish store?
Well, wasn't Bruskin's there in Bridgeton? Wasn't that a designer store?
I've never heard it described as a designer Jewish store.
No, we went to
Bruskin's
W.T. Grant and got our stuff.
Right.
We didn't,
Well, but I did too. I went to J.C. Penney when I was a kid.
I know you did.
And Sears.
You dressed. You didn't even. I never saw you until later. I never saw you in a pair of blue jeans until later.
I know. And
I mean, you wore double knit pants.
And of course, you like my children, both assume that my life did not occur.
And that's not what
there
I'm
was no
saying.
part of my life that existed before you met me.
I know, but this is
there
why...
are photographs in the family albums, and I'll get my sister to get them out, of me in blue jeans.
I know,
as a kid before I met you.
You're missing the point.
I'm not missing the point.
Yes, you are, because
the statement's made. Dad never wore blue jeans. Yes, he did.
No, I'm saying to you,
I had to make him hip.
The reason that I think you were attracted to quirkiness is because you yourself had quirky ways about you.
Well, are you attracted to quirky, or are you quirky to begin with? Now, let's think about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I didn't have a normal childhood growing up.
I just said that, and that's when I said to you,
No.
normal.
You right, but you said I wasn't more normal because I didn't wear blue jeans. First of all, I did wear blue jeans.
No, you went to an Israeli designer shop,
and I've never been to an Israeli designer shop. Bruskin's was a independently owned clothing establishment that sold not high end, I wouldn't say.
Well, it was more expensive than Penny's, and it was much more expensive than W.T. Grant.
And it was a better level quality of clothing.
But I didn't know another teenager that bought anything from that store. I knew men who did, but I didn't know teenagers that bought from that store.
And I'll get to the reason why, because there is a reason why. Coming quickly.
Yes, you're quirky.
I started playing the piano.
We all know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I started playing in front of audiences, of course.
That's correct.
And you were kind of around, but anyway, at that point, 12 or 13 years old, which would enter into quirkydom for you, my father and specifically my mother agreed with that if I was going to be in front of audiences that I probably should have a little bit nicer clothing than W.T. Grant's or Mr. Biggs.
Yes.
Which is some people used to shop there, but I won't mention any names.
No, I know. But listen, I agree with them. I totally agree with them.
So that was about the time that I met you.
Right.
So hence, I was going to the so-called Israeli, what did you call it?
The Jewish designer store.
Oh my God! To all my Hebrew friends, my sincere apologies.
Well, no,
I never knew the man was even Jewish until I probably was out of high school.
Yeah, he was a good man, though.
They were good people. They were wonderful people. Yeah. Even though they did make me wear husky.
I know.
Pants.
Well, listen. The main thing, though, is to keep in mind that Jeff Duffield always was himself, whether or not you fit into mainstream or not. And let's just face it, gospel music back in the late 60s and early 70s was new to all of us up there, right?
Yeah, right.
And for a young man to dress like you dressed in a Nehru jacket, coming into
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
I never saw a gospel group wearing Nehru jackets. I got that from school and the Beatles. Because the Beatles were wearing Nehru jackets. My father did not want me to buy one.
Listen, your mother was your advocate, I think.
She did.
She? Yeah.
And she stood there, and we bought that at Sears, by the way.
And you know what?
Bruskins would have never sold a Nehru jacket.
In your realm of conservatism, that was very radical. That was quirky.
Dad didn't want me to buy a Nehru jacket. He just didn't like it. My mother, and what cinched it was my mother saying to him, George, when you were that age, you had a zoot suit.
See,
now you really have to go back a ways or do some research on the internet to what a zoot suit is. But my father, that was the end of the discussion. He just looked at my mother and said, "Okay, you're right."
He couldn't say a word.
There was nothing he could say. No, because the zoot suit was the Nehru jacket of his era.
Yes, it was.
And so I had one.
And you walked into a Pentecostal camp with a Nehru jacket on, and everybody's head turned. I watched this.
Yeah, I did get some attention.
It's like, who is this kid?
And then
that's the kid that plays the piano, and he's got a Nehru jacket on.
And I played the piano, yeah. And he was pretty good at it. But he was quirky.
He was. But listen,
anyway,
you know what? If you, my friend, embrace the things that make you different and start thinking more creatively, which is what you were a creative back then.
I didn't look at it as different. I just looked at it as me.
Well, I'm saying, but to the mainstream, and neither was I. Right. I mean, in as much as I tried to fit into mainstream,
and I did some things. I was on the bowling team in my elementary school. Most improved average.
I don't know why I'm laughing at that, but it sounded funny.
Most improved average 2 years in a row. Thank you very much. Of course, when you never bowled before in your life and you're starting from scratch, there's nowhere to go but
most
up.
Improved.
I mean, as long as you weren't throwing the ball down the gutter, you were improved.
Right. That's like the modern day participation trophy.
Close to it. But I did in fact, and our teacher, who was our advisor, was a qualified Brunswick instructor.
Oh, see.
So he took me on as a personal project because I barely knew how to pick up a bowling ball, which is saying something.
To battle the fact that you were very savant-like in your piano playing and having to fit in to the mainstream, young Sheldon, you had to do this. You had to find ways to be able to be a real person because you were so far advanced than most of the kids in your...
I wouldn't call it advanced, but whatever.
We've talked about this on previous episodes where
I hope so.
You were smarter than the room, but the problem was you were bored. Right?
In some things,
yeah.
Yes.
So being bored, we also saw that with our own son.
It comes
who was
back
also
to you.
Brilliant. And,
it comes back to you.
Yeah, and had to kind of focus him on being creative.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything I read about having a quirky mind usually means That's you're very creative.
And we're 9 minutes into this. And we've been discussing my quirky. We've not bridged the gap yet to go into your quirky.
All right, well, so let's go back 2 nights ago.
Okay.
All right, unfortunately...
No, this ain't quirky. This is weird.
Well, this is weird and quirky together. I know, and I do have my things.
Oh.
I know I do.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
But I'm not aware of them until I'm actually involved in it.
Of course you're not.
So I'm having serious back pain after pivoting the wrong way by picking up wonderful little baby Hudson, 25 pounds, and putting him in to the car seat, and I heard something go... And I went, oh, thank you, Jesus, for healing me right now. And after a couple of chiropractic adjustments, I'm better, but I'm still walking around like the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Or Notre Dame.
Or Notre Dame.
Yeah.
See, that's quirky. See, that's quirky.
No, that's correct.
I know, but you're correcting me, so that's quirky.
Well, our son says parse. And it's not parse.
It's per se.
It's per se.
Anyway, so you hand me 2 Tylenol pills, the long ones.
You requested extra strength Tylenol, 500 milligrams.
This is 3:00 in the morning, and you hand them to me in my hand
with a glass of water.
And I'm trying to configure both of those pills in my fingers so that when I put them on my tongue, they're not lateral; they're going vertical down my throat. And it's taking me a while to fix it that way. And you're standing there looking at me.
You're twirling them in your hands, and I'm standing there looking at you like, just put the pills in your mouth.
And the next thing I know, they need to know this. I mean, it was probably, 30 seconds?
I held it as long as I could.
And then the next thing I know is I hear this. And you died laughing at me.
Absolutely, I did.
And I had to admit, it was funny because I was laughing too at that point.
It was funny.
But I mean, you're standing there.
It wasn't 3:00 in the morning either. You weren't dead asleep. You were quite awake.
Okay, I don't remember what time.
Yeah, and you just looked like Humphrey Bogart, as your father used to say. Humphrey Bogart in the movies where he does that thing with the marbles in his soliloquy that he did in the movies. And I think it was from Mutiny on the Bounty, but I may be wrong.
Well, I don't know that I ever had an idea that I had a quirky way of putting pills on my tongue. Listen, I now the realization.
So you've done this before.
I've done it before, not in front of you, obviously.
Evidently.
No, but it just occurred to me, oh my goodness, I do this all the time.
And I'm like, put the pill in your mouth and swallow the water. The pills will do you no good spinning in your palm of your hand.
Oh,
but nonetheless,
it's unique. It's quirky. I know it's weird. It is very weird. And it's almost like we've talked about before. Maybe it's those years of my father going out to drive through, establishments and bringing the food home, and it was cold, and I hated it cold, and we didn't have microwaves back then to be able to heat them up.
No,
we could have thrown them in the oven, but that's different. But
it takes too long.
If I go through a drive-through, I am not taking that drive-through food into the house. I'm eating it in the car,
wherever the car may be.
That is quirky. I know it's quirky, and now I know the discovery of how I put vitamins and pills on my tongue is quirky. It's scaring me.
Yeah. Just
what is this?
Swallow the pills.
Oh, goodness. So are there any other quirkiness things that you've observed?
The most difficult thing about quirky is that you're not aware.
Oh, well, that's true.
You do not self-identify these things.
Right.
It takes other people to identify the quirkiness, if you will.
That's a good thought. I never thought about that.
Yeah, because it's not quirky because you've done it all your life.
Right. That's
pretty much.
Yeah.
But so,
Well, my father had this thing, and maybe this is too much information, but we never thought my father used the bathroom in the house.
Oh, you're getting me scared now.
We really did.
Well,
he never used the bathroom, ever. I never saw him in the bathroom.
I got to admit to you that the years I came around in high school, I never saw that either.
You know why?
There's a reason for it.
Yes, because the man would work shift work, which, all the hours of the day. And sometimes he would work a double.
Yes.
So that means he would work 16 hours straight.
Yes.
So he would get a shower.
Yes.
upon entering DuPont and then exiting DuPont.
Yes.
And then he would do all the other activities that you do in a bathroom at DuPont. But he would never use it at home.
As they say, on the plant, as they used to say.
But my favorite little episode too recently with you is by accident you used the wrong ointment on a part of your body.
Talk about too much information.
No, I'm just saying. You thought it was the ointment and it was toothpaste.
That's not quirky. That's dumb.
I know.
But
didn't you say?
Yes,
you
the day
said to
before.
yourself.
I said it to you the day before that these two tubes
they look too much alike.
Of chemical products are sitting on the bathroom counter. And if you're not reading them, you're going to pick up the wrong one. And I said, I got to make sure that I read these stupid things because otherwise I'm going to be putting toothpaste on an area of my body that doesn't need to have toothpaste.
No.
And I'm currently go on the downside of dealing with a small skin condition, irritant, as you will.
I'm so sorry.
That I got medicine from the dermatologist for.
Right.
And I'm supposed to apply it in the evenings and the mornings. And my problem last night was that I fell asleep on the couch while you were doing something. You were in your office.
Yeah.
Involved in something. And I fell asleep and I woke up and came downstairs to go to bed, take care of all the pre-bedtime administrations.
I'm just grateful you didn't brush your teeth with the ointment.
Amen.
You could have very easily done that.
I would have noticed that really quick because I'm sure that ointment does not have a minty fresh taste to it. And I had nonetheless, I grabbed the toothpaste, not paying attention, didn't read it, and I put it on my skin, and I'm like thinking, oh, the consistency of that, this isn't right. It doesn't feel like the cream is supposed to feel.
Yeah.
And then a couple of minutes later, that portion of my skin developed that minty fresh feeling that they talk about in the commercials, in the winter spring commercial, if you will.
That's right.
And I thought, what in the world? And then I go back and you dummy, and look at the tube. And of course, I put the toothpaste where the cream belonged.
So it's pretty obvious we don't need help in the quirky department. We don't need help in the goofball department.
No, we've got it down.
But I think we're onto something, though, because our life is an open book, Jeff. Every Thursday night we share music.
If it wasn't before.
We get on podcasts. We're on the road a lot. We talk with people. We interact. We're on Twitter.
And if you
all
ever had
this stuff.
Speaking of quirkiness, have you ever had a feeling of impending doom?
Oh, no.
Because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about what we've been talking about for the last 17 minutes. And in case anybody's wondering, I have a counter in front of me. I'm not that good with time. But another quirky part. I have to feel like I have to explain everything to people that are not here.
Yeah, and we never get the Reader's Digest version.
No, but you would if you would not interrupt me. But that's another story. There's a quirky, but I have this sense of impending doom because of the last now 18 and a half minutes. We've been exposing just about every part of our, and I just know there are people, certain individuals that listen to this podcast on a regular basis, and we're going to hear about it.
I know, I love it.
We're going to hear about it.
And there's another little quirky thing about you that I want the audience to know. They don't know that you really, really are irritated when microphone cords are wrapped
again
wrong. Correct?
Again. There's a reason.
I know.
If you wrap a microphone cord properly, it will last you a very long time. I have cords in my possession that I've had for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Because they're wrapped.
So without a visual here, so what you're saying is do not take a cord and wrap it around your elbow and your hand. No, not that way. Okay.
No.
What you do is...
There's several different ways.
Okay.
And it's hard to describe without showing. But
right.
I happen to do the hand-to-hand method, as they call it. that you grab it and you grab the end in one hand and you go about a foot away with your other hand,
Right.
and then you go back and forth.
And you line them up
and you
not laterally, but vertically so that they lay perfect, just like a person does putting
Sometimes, yeah.
pills on their tongue.
Yeah.
See, this is
Yeah,
why I'm
there you
saying
go.
to you,
There you go.
the quirkiness
But,
of both of us is
however-
pretty similar.
However, when I'm wrapping cables, as you well know, it don't take me long to do it. I don't have to sit there and think about it. I've done it so many times over many years that I do it second nature. I don't analyze the microphone cable while I'm wrapping it, as opposed to someone who analyzes the Tylenol.
So what if somebody was saying to you today, Jeffrey, how can I have a quirky mind? How can I be quirky? Well, believe it or not, I wrote a few things down just for you. All right.
Oh, I can hardly wait for this.
Well, listen, you got to be passionate. Number one, about a few key things in your life, like microphone cords, or how you put and position vitamins on your tongue, or going through a drive-through and having to eat the food then because it's hot. But, you know, there's a lot of issues, too, that you and I both know that we are quirky about, and I am so grateful we are. We're very selective, and we're very, what's the word? I guess just want to be educated on how we give our resources to help nonprofits around the country. I love that quirkiness about us. I love the fact that we do investigation long before we hand over money.
Well, we should.
And that's a great thing. We just don't throw it out there. I want to know that there's a benefit going on by investing in someone's life, ministry-wise or any kind of a nonprofit. And we do that. We're very quirky about that. But that's good. That's a good thing.
Yes.
And then another thing, don't act fake for the sake of being quirky. I may have told you that you met him. There was a young man in our youth group years ago in my little church. He was unique on his own, but then he would try to be even more quirky and more unique, and it just never came off right. In fact, it made him look disingenuous. Mm-hmm. So don't do that either. Don't try to be somebody else, and don't try to force it. But the best part about it, and I think this is number 3, my concept about my quirkiness is the fact that it makes me have a really fun outlook on life.
Well, you do.
I mean, even in my pain, even in going through 2 major kidney stone surgeries and then throwing my back out and doing all kinds of weird stuff, I've learned that my quirkiness and my faith kind of go hand in hand. And if you can't laugh, how many know?
Oh, here's a quirky.
Yeah?
Yeah, for you. You have this ministry of directions.
Well, that's true.
That you give to me.
No matter where I'm seated in the car.
And also driving instructions. I'm 68 years old. Conservatively have driven 1.5 million miles in my lifetime. And your turn signal's on. Yes, I know. I'm going to make a turn. Or like the other day, taking you back for your follow-up to your urologist.
Yes.
Which thankfully was a very positive
good report. Absolutely.
It was very positive.
Praise
and
God.
Everything's
That's right.
doing well. Your kidney is functioning the way the good Lord designed it, and we're grateful for that. I have driven this route, in the last 6 months for different reasons. 20 or 25 times easily. And some of them in the last several weeks. And I'm going over there the other day, and it struck me as funny, is you're guiding me into the parking lot of the urologist's office.
Yes.
And as I said to you, I said, dear, I know where I'm going here. The first time I brought you here, you didn't even know your name.
Well, you know what? That's
because of the
exactly
pain
right.
meds you'd been given the night before.
Right.
You weren't that day. You weren't being quirky.
No,
there was
I
no
know.
directions being
And
given.
my only response to that is you're absolutely right. And who
Yes.
is cooking you dinner tonight?
And has nothing to do with the fact that I knew how to get you to that doctor's office.
I know you did.
And I successfully completed the task.
Right.
Yes.
Well, number 4, don't follow the crowd, Jeff. Don't follow the crowd.
I definitely fall into
this
that
is a way to be
category.
quirky, right?
Yeah.
They don't follow the norms, and they do things that other people, don't even think of doing. And there are a lot of things I see Jeff Duffield do, and I'm saying this in a holistic, faith and a really
you're really trying to qualify this, aren't you?
No, I'm saying I see you do things for other artists and other
okay.
singers
Okay.
and other musical guests, musical artists, whatever I'm trying to say, that you go above and beyond, and that's not quirky. That's amazing. That's being very creative.
Aren't you supposed to do that?
I know that.
Okay.
But here's the thing: we don't follow trends.
Well, let me just say this about that. Geez, I sound like Richard Nixon. Let me just say this about that. People helped me
Right.
at different points in my life. And I just think that's what we're supposed to do when someone needs some assistance and you have the answer for that.
Right.
Then you do that. I have a friend of mine is a very talented musician who is in an area of the country that is not exactly known as a hotbed for music.
Right.
It's known as a hotbed for retired people. And he's not retired.
Right.
And he's struggling to find jobs for music. And he's an incredibly talented player and arranger and writer. And I turned him onto a website yesterday that musicians can log on to, get an account with, and advertise their services to people that he would never meet.
Right.
Through the power of the internet, and they can avail themselves of his abilities and his talent, and it's a way to make money,
right?
For musicians like that, and he was very much interested in it because he's struggling to find. He said to me, he said that's where he lives is not there's not a lot of recording work or production work there to be had, so he's struggling in that regard, and so as you well know, because you know the person, through the years, he's been an invaluable assistance to me and to you, and has helped us over the years with mentorship and knowledge and advice and all sorts of things that he's done for us musically. And so here's something that I can do to help him.
Right.
So,
that goes above and beyond the quirkiness, but it really is a great explanation. I could have probably said the very same thing you did in 2 sentences. See, and that's the hard part of what we do is the quirkiness of what makes this marriage work.
Yes.
Is that I understand you and you understand me.
Yes.
And I love, number 5, I love as being a quirky wife to you. I love doing the unexpected. That's my favorite thing, I like to just surprise you. You're not one for that as much, but
not as much as you, but I have my moments. I have my moments.
Well, you know what, Jeff, before we close out, I got to tell you, this is true. Even in Scripture, there's some quirkiness that went on.
No.
Yes. Did you remember hearing, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Have you heard that?
I've heard that statement.
Well, I love this because when Nathanael was told by Philip that the Messiah was soon to be found in Nazareth, his reply was absolutely golden, and I love it. It says, can anything good come out of Nazareth? And that's from John 1:46. Talk about quirky. But what makes that even funnier to me is that when you consider the word Nazareth comes from the Hebrew word Netzer, which means branch. Now think about that for a second. Numerous Old Testament prophets foretold that Christ the Messiah would be known as the branch. And it would make complete sense that the Messiah would come from there. So, yes, something good can come out of Nazareth. There's no doubt about that. But for Nathanael, I got to think about it for a minute. The joke was on him, right? He didn't know it at the time. But soon it would all come into focus. And what do I mean by that? Well, guess what? There was an Israelite also in whom there was no deceit. What everything that we know is funny as a joke that Nathanael may have said, the very next scene, Nathanael gets introduced to the Messiah. And when Jesus saw Nathanael approaching him, he said this, "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. And Jesus said, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." And what happens next? Jesus makes him one of his disciples right on the spot. So the moral of the story is, make a snarky, quirky comment about the Messiah's hometown, and you just might become his next disciple. How does that make you feel?
Quirky.
Can anything good come out of Bridgeton, New Jersey? Can anything good come out of Pennsgrove, New Jersey? And I think here's the cool thing, Jeff. And as we close, I think something wonderful comes out of every single town where somebody says, I'll stand true to my Savior. I'll stand true that regardless of my personality, regardless of my quirkiness, I will stand true in the faith of opposition. Jeff has had opposition. I've had opposition. We've had people shake their heads, walk away. We even talked about a couple of things recently where years ago we had a couple of events where we knew we didn't go over, which is interesting because we think about this. We think everybody loves you, right? You think everybody, the whole world loves your music. That's not true at all. So the good thing is it keeps us humble. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Absolutely. And I will tell you, the more quirky we are for the gospel, and as our new pastor here at World Outreach, Pastor Alan Jackson says, just don't be weird.
We're in trouble.
Share Jesus, but just don't be weird. Anyway, we'll see you next time on the podcast.